Hello, Palladium fans. We are back, and this time we are heading across the pond to hopefully a series of world books that we're going to cover in this episode. We're going to try and touch on England, Triax, and if we have time, the New Phoenix Empire and Rifts, Africa. So, Kevin, thanks for joining me. I'm so excited. We talked about the first half and the first couple of source books and world books, and then you came out with England, and it's got this great cover, and the first third of the book is among the most peaceful of all Rift supplements. We get the Millennium Tree Druids, we get all the rules for herbs and Millennium Tree weapons and Millennium magic items and druidic potions. You packed so much into this book. All of the temporal magic and temporal raiders and temporal warriors are in there. And then we get New Camelot. So why go to England hot off the success of Atlantis?
Because?
That's a good answer. I'll take it.
I don't know. So a lot of people ask, where do your ideas come? Why do you do certain books? And I just kind of go with the flow. If something's really burning in me, I just kind of go with it. And after we did Atlantis, I figure we're kind of halfway there.
Yeah.
To the shores of Europe and the United Kingdom. So I thought, and I always liked Arthurian legend and when you're talking standing stones and megalithic and ley line and nexus point, for God, heaven. I don't know if there's any place on the planet that has more ley lines and nexus points in such a small area anyways than the UK. Obviously North America does, South America, but just a little island kingdom that's just
per square mile
crawling with ley lines and nexus points and ancient standing stones, and so it just seemed like a natural to me.
That's awesome. So what was the first germ of the idea? Was it the Millennium Tree? Was it New Camelot? Do you remember, or did it all just kind of come together holistically?
Yeah, I actually, the first idea was the Millennium Tree. So I really liked that idea. And I also wanted to give the good guys something that was crazy magic and supernatural that wasn't out to eat them. Something that actually rewarded heroes and worked with heroes so they could get, Millennium Tree, leaf armor, and make wands and staves and that kind of thing. I thought that'd be really, really cool.
Yeah. And again, like I said, this is a feature, not a bug. Again, like that first third of that book is just kind of, man, England is a place I want to go to, as opposed to the first third of Atlantis where I'm like, my players will never step foot on this island at all. They'll never want to go there.
Well, and I was aware of that. The first couple of books we did, Vampire Kingdoms, you're crazy if you go there. Atlantis is a great place to visit. There's so much potential, but you're probably even crazier to go there. Because both of those places are just so dangerous. You really have to play carefully. And I wanted to give people some place they could go that was, a comparatively friendly, safe-ish place to go.
Well, and I think you did that. You went from kind of Vampire Kingdoms is very overtly evil, even if in world there's this kind of, false flag wild vampire operation. Atlantis is clearly not a place to go. But you gave us sort of a subtler hidden evil to work with in England. We got, New Camelot is back, and we've got, dragons helping us out. And we finally get to see the dragons that were kind of mentioned several times before. And then we find out, if you read the GM section, oh no, there is some continuity between Old Camelot and New Camelot, and it's not the kind of continuity that you want. And in fact, the evil behind this shining kingdom has learned a lot. And so you get kind of whenever I ran it, it was very much, I was inspired a lot by The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, who in Camelot is actually Merlin? Or is it just, and as they find out, this network, it's not just a network, it's, well, that guy you killed, he was also this guy, and this guy knows what you did. But I turned Camelot from this, you gave us a Camelot that was very easy to turn from this shining light and beacon, which has good and true heroes like Arthur and Percival. But you could run a very Game of Thrones sort of,
Oh, yeah.
alien horror, alien political horror thriller kind of in the midst of it. And that's,
that's where you naturally went because, gee, we don't have enough danger and evil in the world.
Right. I love good villains, and I feel like good villains have to be seen and they have to be used. Otherwise, they're not good villains. They're just something that's happening, kind of over there.
I'm with you.
The other great thing was the temporal magic. We had temporal raiders, temporal wizards, temporal warriors, some of the craziest spells. The one that stands out to this day that my friends still talk about was the guy who used, was it Summon Ego, where you summoned one of your selves from the future, but you had to roll to see what their alignment was. And it came back diabolic. And that guy just blipped out and ended up becoming one of the main villains, like, of the next couple of arcs, because he was like, oh, no, I'm here, but I'm this weak, scrupulous person. Oh, well, I can definitely do better with this world than that guy can. And just a great spell. Like, it was a desperate attempt by the temporal wizard to deal with something, and it blew up in his face spectacularly. So
nice.
Any hidden gems on how the book came together, or fun stories from that time that you can remember?
I had a lot of fun with it.
It clearly shows, because that whole book is like a love letter, and it's not just to Camelot, because we get the Celtic gods, we get the Star Children, we get the Earth Child. Like, there was a lot of research that was clearly done.
Yeah, it just like a lot of these places, I want to make it kind of my Riff's version of that culture or society or mythology. And I knew a lot about England, and especially with ley lines and the megalithic stone, Stonehenge.
Yeah.
I had actually gone to England with the family. Mary Ann, my wife of the time, got us this great vacation to England and Amsterdam, and that was inspirational. That was cool. Okay. And, because it's just neat to walk around someplace where there's like buildings and you go, wow, that's hundreds of years old. And, oh, this little path here, or this road in the country, that was built by frickin' Romans in like 300 AD. Or earlier, it was just, and I really liked it. There's a couple, I haven't traveled a lot. I'm not a big traveler person. And, but England is one of my favorite countries, especially historically.
Yeah.
And Canada is another one, mainly because, they're right next door. They're across the bridge, or, through the tunnel. So, I spent much of my childhood on weekends in Canada because it was exotic. So my mom and dad would take us to Canada to go to some park, and we'd always stop and get ice cream on the way home. And, so that has a special place for me, because a lot of people ask me, why do you do, especially Canadians, are like, they're so happy that someone recognizes their country and treats it as something more than, USA light.
Yeah, America's hat. Yeah.
And it's like, because I'm familiar with Canada and I love Canada and I have a lot of Canadian friends. And I can't say that as much with England, although in the last 20 years, I mean, I do have a bunch of friends who live in the UK,
Yeah.
and that's awesome. And I've been to England a couple times, but yeah, it's just fun, and I really enjoyed Arthurian Legend. One of the, in fact, I want to mention for those who like reading books on King Arthur. Sadly, this book was never finished, but one of my favorite authors is John Steinbeck,
Yeah.
and most people know John Steinbeck from the Grapes of Wrath,
The
and
Pearl.
yeah, there's a bunch of great freaking novels that he did of Mice and Men, and
Yep.
which is a fabulous book, and The Pearl, and all kinds of stuff. But he started to write a book on King Arthur,
Oh,
and it's
really?
out there. I forget the exact title of it. It's great if you track it down. It's
Excuse me.
bless you. It's Steinbeck's book is just, I loved it. I loved it. Well, I like his writing a lot to begin with, and it was a really nice thing. And I knew going in that the book was never finished. He died before he could finish it, but
Yeah.
it was something that he kind of like was kicking around for years, and he'd go and write a chapter or two and then put it aside for a year or two or three and go back and write some more. And so I knew it was going to end, but when it ended, I'm like, oh, because I want a lot more, because it doesn't, the story doesn't end. It's just
Right.
kind of like it's leading up to something cool, because it
So,
kind of follows various members of the round table. So there's like a little story about this guy and that guy and other
oh,
guy,
that's really
and then
cool. I'm
it's
going to
like
track that down.
the end, and you're like, oh shucks.
I mean, I've read Mallory to my son. I've read White to my son.
Yeah, those are the most famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got, did you know that T.H. White wrote and illustrated a medieval bestiary?
Hmm.
I managed to find a copy. It is this delightful little book because, like, one of the things about T.H. White is I really feel like at the start, in The Sword and the Stone, he's kind of like, oh, look at how much better we are than, he keeps making these asides, and Merlin's a very, like, modern character. And by about the end of book two, he's like, oh man, the medieval times were great. Yeah, they didn't have all of our features, but man, look, they had this and they had this and they treated people this way. By the end, he's fallen so in love with the medieval era that he wrote an entire bestiary and did all the hand illustrations for it. I'll send you
Oh
some
wow.
pictures. It's this little gem. Anyway, sorry. Speaking of somebody who wrote and illustrated uh, things about England, did you get any of your art in England, or at this point were you kind of like full time writing the source books?
No, I was still fooling around with stuff. In fact, I did the Temporal Raider
Yeah.
full page illustration, and a few other illustrations in the book. Wayne Bro did most of it. There's a couple really nice, like the Nexus Knights is by
Yes.
Kevin Long. But Wayne Bro did a bunch of art in the book, and a lot of people kind of poo-poo his early art, but it's simple, and it's not Kevin Long at that stage, but if you look at the books and Wayne Bro's arc, he becomes an outstanding artist. I mean, he's the guy who did most of the art and most of the robot designs in Chaos Earth,
Yeah.
and they're incredible. I mean, some of them you look at and it's like, is that Kevin Long, or who is that? And it's
Yeah.
like, oh no, it's Wayne Bro. And yeah, he really grew into a fabulous artist. And the reason I gave him his shot with that book, and then a few other books, and I think Newton Yule did a few pieces as well in that book. But what impressed me about Wayne Bro was that he was sending in samples of his art, and I would critique it. I mean, I would just savage it, and because I could see he had potential, and I would try to temper with like, lots of potential, and keep at it,
Yeah.
and check out this book on inking, and check out this, and do that, and work on this. And he would, every like 3 months or so, he would send me some new samples, and he just got better and better and better and better. And then finally, after like a year and a half or 2 years, I'm like, I got to give this kid his shot, because he's good and he's got great heart, and and he did. He just took off. So
one of my best friends is a guy named Bob Crum. He does art for me over at Strange Owl and Iconic, and he's put out this gorgeous deck of cards. We first becoming friends, he would ask me to critique his art, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's good. I really like it." He's like, "All right, you got to stop." He's like, he taught me how to critique art. And he's like, this is the kind of feedback I want you to give me. I know that you love it, which is why I'm showing it to you, but I need someone who can see with eyes that are actually a little bit critical. And I think that goes back to, I won't go down this rabbit hole, but I think we've done a disservice to artists in the modern age when we turn critics into a paid hater role. As opposed to, like C.S. Lewis says, if you're going to critique something, you need to love that thing.
Yep.
That's where it comes from. And we kind of have done a disservice to a lot of different types of artists in our modern world, where this is now they're just paid to, tear things apart. So
and if they do
having that opportunity is amazing.
And if they do it on social media, then you got other people chiming in going, "Oh, you're a jerk because you hate it. I love it. I think he's great." And then what's the artist supposed to take from that? Am I great, or do I need to keep working on it?
Yeah.
That reminds me of, I'm big into story, right? And I love all kinds of stories. So we'd go see movies, and then we'd come home and we'd like tear it apart, and I remember some movie, I think it might have been John Carpenter's The Thing, or some movie. Anyways, we were like ripping it to shreds, and my dad's like, "Oh, so you hated this movie?" We're like, "Hate it? We love it."
Yeah.
And he's like, "But you were just tearing it to shreds." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, there's some problems, but it's a great movie."
But I love it so much that I'm willing to like continually churn it over in my mind. That's where I'm like, okay, well, here, okay.
And how would I have done it differently, or what could I even made it even better?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with art, it's kind of easy because you can look at it and go, "Oh, you need to work on your perspective. That background looks really cool, but it's kind of off." Or gee, what if you put in weight lines on your line work, or oh man, the face and upper torso are so good. Why does he have legs of a dwarf?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And so I think artists have a somewhat easier time of it with getting constructive criticism, because people can just look at it and go, "Oh, look at this, look at that, think about that." Where poor writers, they're locked in a room for 6 months and they come out and they go, "Here's my masterpiece." And then when you say, "Well, this doesn't work, or I think that's bad, or you need to work on X, Y, and Z," and they're like, "Oh, you just put a knife in my heart. I got to go get drunk for a weekend." And then
we edit, right? We write drunk.
Well, I hope so. I hope
that is. If I can just speak to any aspiring authors for role-playing games, number one piece of advice: leave your ego at the door, especially if you're working someone else's playground. Take every bit of advice that you can and run with it. Because people give you advice or critique it because they see your potential and want it to be better, not because they're like, "You bother me, kid, get out of here." Like that's been my experience.
No, that's absolutely true. You don't waste your time talking to someone who doesn't have potential.
Yeah.
Especially if you're giving them a lot of critique and a lot of feedback. It means that person sees a lot of potential in you as a writer. We need to do an episode on that.
I'm gonna add,
because we've really strayed from.
We've really. All right, well, we're gonna pull it back. I'll put it in my notes. So let's leave England behind and give you our next world book, which you've got the cover behind you, which is just such a cool sci-fi cover. Yes, Triax and the NGR, the New German Republic. And what we get is Triax book comes out, and what I saw immediately was a lot of parallels between the NGR and the Coalition. You've got this human civilization fighting off a kingdom of monsters. In this case, a literal kingdom of monsters, not just the threats that do exist in North America, but are not nearly as organized. Even the Federation of Magic is more of a federation as opposed to a gargoyle empire. And yet we see a human empire that is not as overtly xenophobic as the Coalition. There's talks of like them like kind of setting up treaties, but even the NGR is like, you guys have gone really extreme. You're extremists in these things, and the Coalition's like, you're not extreme enough. And so, all right, let's talk about Triax. And you expanded it. We've got Mindworks, Sourcebook 3. We've got Triax 2.
One of my favorite Kevin Long covers of all time.
Yes. So what set up Triax?
So I can't remember whether the initial idea was mine. I think I said, I'm going to do Germany next. And then Kevin Long just got so inspired that he just started to bang out ideas. He asked me if he could do a comic strip, and I liked that idea. And then I thought, hey, sure, I'm going to do a comic strip too, which unfortunately mine's kind of rushed and not so good. But Kevin's is amazing. The cover is amazing. The whole book is illustrated by Kevin with a few pieces by me and my comic strip and a few other things. And it was just a Kevin Long tour de force. He just had all these great ideas for things. And I just said, go ahead and run with it. He came up with the idea of the company Triax, if I recall correctly. Pretty sure that was Kevin Long. I think I came up with the New German Republic. And it was very much a collaboration where Kev would give me art and his thoughts behind it. Although in some cases it was just cool art. And it's like, yeah, Kev, just do something awesome with it. And I'm like, that's easy. It's great art.
Right. That is, to me, the peak of working with an artist on something, when they're like, so I know I'm supposed to be doing this, but you also inspired me to do this. Can you do something with that? Hell yeah, I can do something with that.
So yeah, Long came up with the Jaeger and a bunch of the stuff in there were his ideas, his art, certainly his names in many cases.
I'm just saying, Riff's had giant robots fighting giant named Jaegers fighting giant monsters decades before a certain movie franchise. That's all I'll just leave that there.
And obviously gargoyles, I mean, those were, inspired from Palladium Fantasy. And
oh yeah.
So, and again, we just try to put in all kinds of cool stuff. We wanted to make Triax and the New German Republic sort of Europe's coalition states.
But again, kind of a softer, like, again, not as extreme version. And part of it is the history of Triax does not have as many just horrible, like, there is no Lord Dunstan out in Europe to sort of forge his enemies into something that hates magic so much.
Correct. And it's they've actually been around longer than the CS2, and they're in a different situation where they're surrounded by an enemy, but it's a more monstrous, more literal kind of bad guy enemy, which is where sort of Mindworks comes in, and the Angel of Death and the Angel of Vengeance, because those two leaders are more methodical and strategic, even though they're leading the broad kill for the most part and instigating things with the
Yeah.
gargoyles. I mean, they work with the gargoyles, but the Angel of Death and the Angel of Vengeance is, they're just a couple of demented.
That book, with all of its new crazy options, with all of its new mind over matter options, with the gene splicing and all of that, that was the first time for me since Vampire Kingdoms that I had a true sense of horror in the Rifts world. Right. This was uh, my mind is drawing a blank. He's a director who does a lot of body horror, like techno body horror. Did The Fly.
Yeah.
That was the feeling that I got from it.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of wanted. I wanted to have
David
that real.
Cronenberg.
I was going to say Cronenberg, but I'm
Yeah.
thinking I'm not sure if that's right. Yeah, well, again, I'm always trying to look for something that's going to be different. That's why I put in the corrupted Millennium Tree.
Yeah. I've given you this nice thing, and now I'm going to take it away.
Well, just in one instance.
Yeah.
And I did Poland because I'm Polish descent.
Oh yeah.
And then they're right next door to Germany, and
Yeah.
but and then of course I put in dinosaurs because I love dinosaurs.
Yeah. Why not? Right. Like.
Well, if they're in the U.S., why not here too?
That's right.
Yeah.
But then you came back and revisited it with Triax 2.
Well, and so it's interesting because Triax was inspired by Kevin Long, and Triax 2 was inspired by Triax 1, but this was a book where Brandon Ayton and his brother-in-law Matthew said, Kev, we love Triax so much. Can we do a Triax 2? And I had worked with Brandon for years, kind of mentored him a little bit, and he did some intern work at Palladium Books, and we had become pretty close friends.
Yeah.
So I said, sure, take a run at it. And he turned in a great book.
Awesome.
And so then we just reached out to other people to do art for his designs. And, I went in and, of course, tweaked them and made sure everything had the proper continuity. But, yeah, that's very much a Brandon Ayton who's gone on to do great stuff with his own company, and which is really cool. I'm so proud of that guy. He's got a nice family, lovely wife, and they're doing great stuff. I keep asking him when he's going to quit his real job and just focus on role playing.
That's the dream, right? I mean, it's the aspiring dream of so many of us, and so few of us get to enjoy it.
Yeah, I've been very lucky in that regard, for sure.
Oh, for real. When we've covered. Go back and watch the early episodes, right? Kevin said he was either going to be an artist or a writer, and got to
be both.
Got to be both.
And have my own company. And so the cool thing with this, it really builds on and kind of moves the timeline ahead. Because the first book, I think, is in 103 or 105 PA. And this takes it, I think, to 101, 109. And, and it's got a great cover by Scott Johnson. And there's a ton of great art in this book by a bunch of good artists. And it moves some of the story elements along, Captain Nemo and the New Navy, and what's going on with Triax, where they're starting to feel like they're finally winning that war. Poor fools.
All the way back in Mechanoids, we get the Edict of Planetary Distress. And you speak of these coming dangers. And before we get into the next book, what was your impetus for putting these, this edict out? Did you have a roadmap, or was this sort of a, Man, this sounds so cool. Someday, that's future Kevin's problem. Future Kevin gets to figure out what these seven great dangers are. I just wanted something cool at the time. How did this Edict of Planetary Distress come into fruition?
So, yeah, I think it was kind of a combination of the two, because I really only had an idea. So this is in source book, Rift source book 2, the Mechanoids.
The Mechanoids, yes.
And I thought it'd be really, really cool. And I knew what the first 4 dangers were. And then I figure, oh, I'll need stuff later, so another 3 that works. It worked out great.
That was
So
those are the best kind of prophecies in role-playing games, because I would say like 6 times out of 10, if I do something like that, all I have to do is listen to my players, and they'll come up with something that fits and is way worse than anything I would have imagined, and then they feel smart, like they solved the riddle.
Well, part of my problem was like 10 or 12 years later, I had completely forgotten about it until someone's like, are we ever going to find out what the 7 dangers are? And I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, I got to follow up on that. It's a great idea. I set it up. How could I forget that?
Well, in fairness, 95 books later,
well, yeah,
certain plot points are just going to be left up to the GM, because the human mind cannot hold all of them at once. So you decided to do Rifts Africa, and I love the intro. I'm like, hey, why would I write this book? Like, that's like that intro just, like, I think puts the whole book into context. And then you're like, well, first we're going to start off with the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, and I love that cover, but that's not the cover that I had.
Oh yeah, you had the Kevin Long where dead were coming out of the ground.
Yeah.
One of the horsemen was like summing them up. Yeah. It's a cool cover, which I liked a lot. But we had other people who would comment on the cover from time to time saying, I don't know, it's not Long's best, which it told a great story. I loved it. But
yeah.
And I thought I had a copy behind me to show you guys, but I didn't. But I do love this.
Yeah, no, it's a great follow-up cover.
Fred Fields, and it's death on one of his nether beasts, and it's great. But so was Kevin Long, and Kevin Long is the guy who inspired me in that book, and he's the guy who came up with the 4 horsemen.
I love that picture of Pestilence with all of the bugs.
All of them were just freaking.
Yeah.
They're just all great.
Now, I'm going to be honest. When I read the original edict, when you have these 4 who are going to become one, I was expecting, like, I don't know, robot lions to come together to form one giant samurai robot lion. And instead, you gave us the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You're like, I'm going to turn the evil dial to 11. And you gave us, this book has the Gathering of Heroes. It's got the adventure where you get to stand next to Aaron Tarn. It's got the Phoenix Empire, where we have kind of a rebirth of the Egyptian Empire. We get necromancers. We get tribal magic. We get the ISIS storyline, which again is one of my favorite storylines in Rifts, and I love that you came back around to that in Madhaven. That was super cool. Like, that was just that was an Easter egg that I loved. Yeah.
I try to have continuity. I try to make it look like we know what we're doing. No, it's actually fun to go back and look at the old books and build upon the original concepts when you can. It's really a blast, whether I'm doing it myself or whether I'm doing it with another writer. It's just so much fun. And for me, it's interesting because it's so many years later, I can look at the material fresh eyes.
Yeah.
And think, oh, now what if we did this? So it's been lots of fun, and you're going to see a lot of that coming up in future books.
I'm really excited about it. So what was your favorite idea that got put into Riff's Africa?
That's a tough one. So the mythology was tough because it's hard, much like Inuit mythology, especially back in the day when I wrote Africa. It was really hard getting a lot of accurate African mythology, and stuff that would be dynamic and fun in the
Yeah.
book. And I decided to go with them sort of being more attuned to the spirit world and that kind of thing. Which sadly, unfortunately, some people have taken as, oh, you're just trying to portray the people as, savage, primitives. And it's like, no, 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 that wasn't what we were trying to do here at all.
No.
But so I did what I could with the mythology that I could dig up and that I felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
And then I love Egyptian myth.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've talked about our love of that.
Yep. So I had to put the Phoenix Empire in there. I thought that would be a blast, and it was, and it is. I think one of my favorite parts, though, is the gathering of heroes.
Yeah.
I thought that was lots of fun.
I always felt there was an echo of the Defilers campaign in the Gathering of Heroes.
Me too, actually. Yeah, without being real obvious about it, but yeah, definitely an echo of. And I just thought it was cool to have, this world threat worldwide, that most people don't even know about because it's in sort of this part of the world that, because of the Phoenix Empire, Europe is kind of detached from, and people are more focused on big obvious bad guys like the Gargoyle Empire and the Broadkill Empire and Atlantis and
Federation
vampires and the Federation of Magic, exactly. And so I thought, we just slip this in here, and people have to kind of find out, heroes have to find out, and hopefully they have the courage to come and face these harbingers of doom.
Yeah.
So, and that was Kevin Long's idea, by the way. That was also a Kevin Long idea, was to do the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And like I said, he came to me one day and said, "What do you think?" And he shows me these drawings, and I'm like, "Holy crap, Kev, this is great." And he gives me his ideas for, this is what these guys can do. And then it was funny because after that, it was kind of like, and you need to figure out how to do something with them because
I'll give you the art, and the ideas, but like the writing, I'm not.
Which makes sense. I mean, writing is a lot more difficult than I think a lot of people believe it is. I ran into a similar thing with John Zalesnik, and John is great. He's done a lot of our covers. I love the guy.
Yeah.
And he had this idea for a Dimension book, Scrapers. And, he pitches it to me, and it sounds cool. It's a superhero thing. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then like 6 months or a year goes by, and he calls me up, and he's got all this great art. I've been seeing all this art for months. And he calls me up one day and goes, "Kev, I sure hope you won't be angry with me." And I'm like, "What, John?" He's like, "Kev, I've tried and tried and tried. I've been trying to write this book for the last year, and it's got like 25 pages of notes. Writing's hard. I can't do it. Can you jump in?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem."
Oh, that's awesome.
So, it's good when people know their limitations, and Long knew he was a great concept guy. But that some of his
we all have them. We all have our blind spots. We all have our limitations, and the phrase is "play to your strengths" for a reason.
Exactly, and at this point, Long and I are like best friends. So it was always a pleasure working with him and riffing ideas with Kev, and developing stuff based on his art. It was always a blast. So.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to an end, and we're actually going to take a step away from like just going through world book by world book. I think our next interview that we're going to do is we're going to start a small series on what became kind of a major turning point for the Rift's uh, world, and that's Coalition War Campaign, and then the Siege of Tolkien, which changed the face of North America. It was this massive, if you include Coalition War Campaign, I mean, you can tie a lot of threads back to the spine that is the Siege of Tolkien, Free Quebec, and I mean, we're talking at least 8 books, if not more like 9 or 10, kind of interlinking, interwoven. We're going to start talking about that next time. So I'm really excited. I remember clearly when that first book came out, we were like, wait, what? What's like when it was advertised? Like, wait, what's happening? You were not content to just have a world that never changed. And it was very clear with these books that, all right, there is a clear dividing line. Here's Rift's Earth before the war, and then here's Rift's Earth after. And very few things in North America were left untouched by the Tolkien War. So looking forward to getting into that next.
Sounds good to me.